Project book review. We will be discussing the book, no other than The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee. Man, this is a classic right here, man. Shout out Nipsey Hussle, man. I'm the spook that sat by the door. This is the infiltration. So, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, the first black nationalist novel, a chiller in the tradition of 1984. The main character, the protagonist in this book, is a gentleman by the name of Dan Freeman. And we're going to talk about Dan Freeman so you can understand why you should read this book and how influential Dan Freeman was to young African-American men in Chicago. So, The Spook Who Sat by the Door came out. It was turned into a movie, and it started slow. Like, what I'm learning about doing these and researching the books that I'm presenting is a lot of great books had hard starts, like Outwitting the Devil, The Celestine Prophecy, The Alchemist, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. Like, a lot of these great books had hard starts because they didn't get the initial response that I can't say the writers wanted or the authors wanted, because when you write a book, you're writing your feelings, and I don't think you write for the intention of saying I'm going to sell hundreds of millions of copies of books. I think that just happens because you told a story so fluently. But anyway, so The Spook Who Sat by the Door, man, this book is amazing, and it teaches you so many underlying lessons that African Americans should pick up on, as well as understand, because you are an African American in America, and just by default, we are a part of a history that subscribes to systemic oppression and institutionalized racism and things of that magnitude. And there's no reason to cry about it right now because you can't change it with tears. You have to figure out how to operate within it to make it better and make it work for you. And that's what Dan Freeman did in his book, man. Shout out Freeman. So The Spook Who Sat by the Door, it initially starts with like an election taking place. And in this election, one of the officials who are running, he's got a lot of heat coming from the public because there are no black faces in the CIA. So they put this like recruitment class together, and Dan Freeman goes through the recruitment class, and he's the only one to make it. He's like extremely skilled in jujitsu, hand-to-hand combat, like everything he scores amazing, and he's like this top-notch African American, and to the point where you would think he was part of the bourgeoisie class of African Americans, but he despised them. Like, he didn't like bourgeoisie African Americans because he felt like they were disconnected from the people at the low end of the totem pole, the African Americans who were with the street gangs, and the African Americans who worked the regular jobs, and the African Americans who had to go day in and day out and possibly get spit on by white people and treated inferior by white people. So he didn't like being associated with the middle class of African Americans, the quote unquote Huxtables. So Dan Freeman goes to the CIA program, and he learns everything about the program. He learns everything about COINTELPRO and whatnot. And after he finishes his time there, he leaves Washington, D.C. and goes back to Chicago. And when he goes back to Chicago, he's like the executive director of like a non-profit organization that works with young kids. And it's the street gang that Dan Freeman associates himself with is the baddest street gang of that era. They was known as the Cobras. Stud Davis, Pretty Willie, shout out to them. And then you had like other street gangs like the Comanches and whatnot. So he infiltrates the Cobras with all the knowledge he has, and the Cobras hangout was like this pool hall. And he goes to the pool hall and he goes to try to talk to him, but you know, at this point, these kids are so traumatized that they are like pushing him away. So he can't meet them on a higher level. He has to meet them on that frequency first. So he gets in a fight with these kids and do these kids dirty in the alleyway, to the point that after he did them dirty, they respected Dan Freeman. And he told them the plan after that. He told them how he wanted to operate. And these kids who society had written off as, you know, misfits and incongruent, and they couldn't do anything right, and they was just troubled children, these kids, Dan Freeman showed them how to be organized. He showed them how to be writers. He showed them how to be protectors. He showed them how to strategically plan and critically think, right? So you get to see these kids who under the right guidance become, you know, like fantastic. Like as I read the book, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, I wanted to know what happened to Stud Davis. I wanted to know how his life turned out. I wanted to know if Pretty Willie ever became a national writer or anything like that. I just wish Sam Greenlee would have wrote a sequel to The Spook Who Sat by the Door. So as I read this book, I feel like it's straightforward based on a plot of the book in 2020. It's straightforward that you understand that the spook who sat by the door is an individual who gets the information and goes back to his rightful community and tells them the information to use against the people who are trying to oppress them, right? Like that's pretty straightforward. The book has its details in it. I think one of the dopest details is when the Cobras kidnap a war general because Chicago falls under martial law due to riots at this time. But all those things and all those semantics of the book, you can read in the book. I actually want to talk about, in this book review, the importance of the message of the spook who sat by the door. So let's start with the title. The spook who sat by the door has a double meaning, right? So the word spook is a racial epithet that shows derogatory to African Americans on one side, and on the other side, it shows is another code word for the word spy. So if you were a spy, you could be a spook. And the fact that he was an African American and quote unquote a spy, he was the spook who sat by the door. So as you read it, you go on this journey with Dan Freeman, and you start to appreciate him because he's like a man's man. He's like a vintage man. He's like a Renaissance man because he appreciates art. He appreciates women. He appreciates good food. Excuse me. And so on and so on. So, and he never lives outside his means. He keeps everything respectable. So as I read the book, I start to think, we need to be more like Freeman forever. Not just in 2020 or 2021, but every day moving forward. After you read this book, you should have been like Freeman. Meaning, you are in a world where it's rules and regulations that you must abide by. If you are operating in any type of activity outside of the law, then your main objective, point number one, should be to know the law. You should know the Constitution. You should know the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. You should know why you have the right to carry a firearm license with your Second Amendment and your right to bear arms. You should know why that you should stop and frisk is unconstitutional based on the Fourth Amendment, right? You should understand these things. So when people engage in these activities, man, I was sitting back and watching how Dan Freeman influenced these young kids to be great men eventually, right? Because in my mind, they didn't just stop after Dan Freeman. I feel like these kids took everything they learned and became amazing. Like Stud Davis became a marksman with a rifle. To the point when they went to the gun range one time, the white guy said, man, he must have been shooting since he was like 3. And Stud probably started shooting for like 3 months. Like they was amazed by his ability to be great. And when I thought about that, just given the opportunity, you will see how amazing our kids are. Like just give them the opportunity on an even playing field and with the right instructors that love them, instructors that truly care, instructors that really embrace them, and you will see how amazing these kids are. But a lot of times they come across people who trying to get over on them. A lot of times they just stuck in survival mode. A lot of times they come from broken homes where their mom is, dealing with issues, their dad is dealing with issues, and that causes the trauma for the child. So now they're not escaping their 5-mile radius, right? But you need these people. You need the Dan Freemans of the world. And Dan Freeman has his other issues in the book, like he has a woman that he's dealing with, like a primary woman, but then he has like his side chicks, but they're not really side chicks because he tells them that this is how they moving and how they gonna interact. Like Dan Freeman, to me, Dan Freeman was like, if I had to compare Dan Freeman to somebody, I would say Dan Freeman was Shaft, right? Like he infiltrates the government and then comes back and does his own thing, right? And essentially he just does it because he wants to help his people. He wants an even playing field. And also from reading this book, you get an understanding of no matter how great you are, it's never great. It's never good to show how all your greatness, right? You have to keep something in the tank. And as I read books, because I fly through books at the moment right now in this pandemic. As I read these books, like a lot of these authors are saying the same thing. Like in The Alchemist, you got the main alchemist with the horse. He never shows how great he truly is. In the Celestine Prophecy, you know, you got this young man going on a journey to figure out something, but he keeps evolving to learn how great he truly is. You have Dan Freeman in The Spook Who Sat by the Door, who knows all this information, has this high-class education, but he operates on a lower frequency so he can interpret and be accepted by people on that frequency, then bring them to the higher frequency, but they have to accept him first. So I hope we understand that, like, you can't always operate on 10. Sometimes you gotta operate on 5. So when you get a chance, go pick up The Spook That Sat by the Door. It's an amazing read. It has influenced many great artists, many great individuals. You got, like, again, the Kevin Gates of the world, the Nipsey Hussles of the world, the Dave Chappelles of the world, right? They talk about this book, like, you know, it's okay to be the spook that sat by the door. It's just a dope read because you get a understanding of how to operate inside a system that's not created for you. But if you know how to operate in it, you can be the best you that you can be. So please go pick up The Spook That Sat by the Door. This is the B.E.L Project book review. I hope you enjoy it. God bless.